Key modern railways. In-depth railway news.
Well, good morning, everybody. And now we come, after Andrew's excellent speech there, onto the awards, where we celebrate some excellent performance and excellent individual and team efforts in railway operations. You know, Andrew talked a lot this morning about the new railway world we're moving into with the Chaps-Williams Review and the formation of Great British Railways. And one of the great themes around that review and around what will be required in Great British Railways is the bringing together of the railway industry in this country and the bringing together of colleagues from all different parts of the railway in the spirit of cooperation and good coordination to give the best possible services for our passengers and our freight customers. And as operators, that's what we want to do. And actually, in the presentations I'm going to announce this morning, you're going to hear about a lot of those behaviours happening already. And we're going to celebrate that in these awards this morning. And so I feel very pleased that despite the fact we're not able to be at our usual venue, hopefully next year, so I'll say more about that at the end of the awards, but we're not able to be at our usual venue and we're having to do this virtually for reasons that we all understand. But we are going ahead with it, and we're going ahead with it to recognise the hard work, the tremendous efforts. And this morning you'll hear about individual efforts and team efforts to continue to deliver good quality of services for all our customers on the railway. Now, the Golden Whistle Awards traditionally come in two parts. There are the performance awards. Shall we call these the measured awards, based on the operating statistics, based on the numbers. The numbers tell us how well different companies, different parts of the organisation, different traffics are doing, different routes are doing, and have done over the past year. And we give awards, Golden Whistle, Silver Whistle, highly commended awards for those results. And those results will be available on your screens later, and indeed in the July edition of Modern Railways. And I know some of you might have already heard about some of those results already. They're all well-deserved, and they are all fully bolstered up by what the numbers tell us. And that's one of the great things about the Golden Whistle Measured Awards. They are based on the facts, the numbers. But today, we're going to concentrate on this webinar on the individual and team awards which are judged. And these are awards where the employers, the firms, other organizations nominate people, individuals or teams for an award, and they send us the reasons why, the basic background, if you like, to what the individual or team has been doing or what they've achieved. And then the IRO judging panel judges those. So the performance awards are measured, and these individual and teams awards are judged. Now, the judging awards, the ones I'm going to announce this morning, are in two categories: individual awards and team awards. And they're called the Outstanding Operator Award. So what is outstanding operations? Well, of course, it's working to deliver good performance, high standard of safety, excellent incident management and service recovery, and, overall customer service quality. This is what we do as operators. This is the day job. This is the basics of a good railway operation. And one of the things I always feel very privileged to award, I've done it for several years now, these Golden Whistle Awards, is because they are about good core railway operations. You can actually only win one of these awards if your numbers speak for themselves and demonstrate what your route, your company has achieved, or if you individually or the team you're in can demonstrate to the judges what you have achieved in these good, outstanding operational skills. Andrew talked about, as I said a second ago, the bringing together of the industry under the new Great British Railways, and with a whole number of themes that correct some of the things that have not been right in recent years and build on some of the very good things that have been achieved in more recent times. And we're going to hear this morning about things in that category. We're going to hear about some very recent work, some work that's been going on during the pandemic. Hard work in tricky circumstances with all the special, COVID-safe arrangements that had to be put in place, but still to deliver improvements that we're going to be able to celebrate. So first of all, I'm going to talk to you about the individual award nominations. We have a shortlist. We have a shortlist of 3 individuals and 1 joint nomination. So 2 individuals working very closely together. I'm going to tell you about those. First of all, I'm going to work through the shortlist and tell you a bit about each of those. And then I'm going to announce the awards within this individual category. So let's start off then with the first person on our shortlist for the individual nomination. And this is Catherine Burnett of Avanti West Coast. Catherine became head of performance for Avanti West Coast in February 2020, just weeks before the first lockdown. And this lockdown and these lockdowns, we should have to say now, over the last a year and a quarter at least, have dominated our lives. We can all remember, I'm sure, what we were doing at the time the first lockdown was announced. We all remember what we were doing just before that, when actually prior to that we were living our lives both working-wise and socially more and more as normal. Well, Catherine will remember because in February 2020, she got the job as head of performance just before the pandemic and set about managing performance on Avanti West Coast. And then all of a sudden she had to do it within the constraints of COVID. But Catherine knew that COVID or no COVID, working collaboratively with Network Rail was going to be a key to good performance. And this is the first time, but by no means the last time in these awards that I shall mention again collaborative working. Collaborative working is a theme under which the railway is going to be going forward under Great British Railways. And collaborative working is the theme that Catherine has been working hard on Avanti West Coast, jointly with Network Rail, throughout the time since she took on this job in February 2020. She's offered leadership and support to people. Some people sometimes aren't sure. Well, hang on, who do I work for? Do I work for Avanti? Do I work for Network Rail? What Catherine has shown is leadership and support to colleagues to show how best we can actually all work together. And she's had to do some things which, were tricky with the COVID impacts. There's been quite a lot of service changes on West Coast. And that's for obvious reasons. Demand very, very much flattened at first, slowly coming back. But those changes of themselves often bring performance issues. And yet, over the first 7 periods of the year 2021, West Coast has seen a dramatic improvement in overall performance, the best for a decade. Now, as Andrew mentioned earlier, of course, far less trains running, of course, many less people around. But nevertheless, working in a COVID-safe environment does itself bring its challenges. And I believe that many of the things that Catherine has been able to demonstrate in her leadership will apply just as strongly when hopefully we're out of this COVID, out of these restrictions, and we're getting back to much more what we know to be normal and bringing people back. So that's our first shortlist nomination. And I'm going to move on now to our second one, which is Varun Mather from Great Western Railways, GWR. And Varun is the performance improvement manager for stations on GWR. 3 years in the job, and he has delivered continuous improvement in stations performance. What is stations performance? Well, as operators, we want dwell times at stations to be met. And when they're not, they can actually be the root cause of more extensive delays. A minute lost train on train on train at a station can combine to a huge delay by the end of that shift or the end of that day. And so it's seconds that count in station dwell times, not just minutes. But of course, in the station dwell time, you've got to deal with your customer requirements as well. So it's the smooth running of station work, the professional operations that can deliver a significant reduction in delays at stations and an improvement in overall performance. It means changes in behaviours. And again, Andrew, in his speech, mentioned an example where there was the bringing together of the staff from both Network Rail and the train operator at a particular major station. And that of itself has benefits for customers, obviously in recognition in delivery of customer service, but it also has benefits in performance. And what Varun has been able to show on Great Western is by that collaborative working at stations, by those changes in behaviours, by focusing on those dwell times, you can deliver a really good overall performance benefit. So that's our second shortlisted nominee, Varun Mather from GWR. Our third one is Stephen Hilfold from Network Rail. Now, Stephen is a shift signalling manager at Three Bridges Rail Operating Centre, the ROC, Three Bridges ROC. And Stephen is innovative. He is a great innovator. He has skills to think of delivering new benefits through new ideas, and particularly technical ideas. Stephen has a way of thinking that helps him to devise small initiatives, but that bring big benefits. He first started with this at a Thameslink project when he developed a system that would give the signallers the advice of the booked platforms of approaching trains at London Bridge. Now, any of you who are anywhere near or involved at London Bridge through the Thameslink project know that it was a really challenging time for operators. There was constrained infrastructure, but there was still big demand at that time from the trains and from the passengers, and therefore the managing of the trains in that environment was a big challenge for all operators, including signallers, of course. But actually, Stephen came up with a piece of technology which could give them advanced information on the booked platforms of approaching trains. It started to work. Stephen subsequently looked at the issue of wrong routing, and wrong routing incidents can actually significantly delay trains. If you're wrong routing, I'm sure all of the experienced operators listening to this will understand immediately the delay implications of wrong routing. But Stephen decided he could devise a technical tool, which could warn the signaller if a wrong route was about to be selected. What a great bit of thinking, as well as the technology. What a great bit of thinking to devise something that could just correct the issue before it happens. And I think the great commendable thing from Stephen's piece of work on wrong routing settings is that it's now he developed it at his location. It's now being developed and used elsewhere on Network Rail. And Stephen himself has been helping to roll it out elsewhere. These are the ways that we harness technology in the modern world. not just multi-billion pound announcements on major projects, but also small initiatives, locally delivered, that make life better for those who are using them. It's really good professional operations. And that is Stephen Pilfold's, the reason for Stephen Pilfold's nomination onto our shortlist. Our fourth shortlisted award in this category this morning is a joint individual entry. Elliot Waters and Nina McGovern. Elliot Waters, Southeastern, Nina McGovern of GTR. Elliot, Station Manager of Southeastern, Nina, Customer Service Operations Manager for Thameslink, Great Northern. And this is a really appropriate award for the Golden Whistles. What Elliot and Nina jointly realized is that the whistle, the traditional whistle, is not a COVID-safe device. You are blowing into it. Particles of your breath are going all over the place through the whistle and out again. You know, a classic whistle is, unfortunately, it's a lovely piece of traditional railway equipment, but it isn't COVID safe. And therefore, we have to say to ourselves, what do we do if we can't blow the whistle? Well, what Elliot and Nina said is that we need an electronic whistle. And, you know, when you think about it, it seems so obvious, but it actually needs somebody to think about doing it. And that was Elliot and Nina. And they really worked hard at this. You know, they researched suppliers. They wrote out a business case. That's so often a feature that sometimes people don't like doing. Have a great idea. Their boss says, great. And they say, well, let's just do it then. But of course, in an industry like the railways, you have to do that professionally, which means you have to write a business case. You have to think through the implications, the costs and the benefits and so on. The business case is the thought through professional reasoning for doing something. They did that. They wrote a business case. They researched the suppliers. They found that where they could get hold of these things, and they could get hold of these things in numbers. And they implemented this now with a supply, I understand it's maybe more than this now, but a supply of 1,500 electronic whistles. So, colleagues, this is the electronic whistles for the Golden Whistles. You see two of them on their screen there. One's red, one's black. But they are nominations as a joint entry with Elliot and Nina for the Golden Whistle Awards. So those are our shortlisted entries today in the individual outstanding operations category. Now, I'm going to tell you about who gets the various awards. I'm going to start off with highly commended. Then I'm going to go to the silver whistle, and then I shall finish off with the award of the golden whistle. So let's start off with the highly commended. And the first highly commended award is Stephen Pilfold's wrong routing tool at Network Rail. And well done, Stephen. A great piece of innovation and a great benefit to signallers who will be able to do their job in complex signalling centres, complex junctions and so on better with the advice, the help, the warning of the wrong routing tool. So highly commended goes to Stephen Hilfold of Network Rail. Highly commended also goes to Varun Mather of GWR. And Varun has worked so hard on those dwell times, on the improving performance at stations. And the judges felt that this was going to be something that the railway will continue to benefit from as the passengers come back, as the stations get busier. Those disciplines of good station performance will continue and, in fact, grow in benefit. So well done, Varun. and a highly commended award to Varun Mather for his work on station performance. So now the silver whistle. The silver whistle in this category goes to Catherine Burnett of Avanti West Coast. Catherine has worked so hard during COVID to continue to deliver improving performance on Avanti West Coast. And again, the judges felt that so much of the excellent work that Catherine has done with her colleagues, leading her colleagues, inspiring her colleagues to drive performance forward will be so beneficial as, again, we look forward to seeing those customers come back, those trains getting busier, with timetables, hopefully in due course increasing again, and obviously a return to something more like the normal situation. So many congratulations to you, Catherine, for winning the Silver Whistle as the individual award as an outstanding operator. A great performance and a great result. Catherine Burnett, Silver Whistle. And those of you who are paying attention will have worked out already who has won the Golden Whistle this year in the Outstanding Operator Individual Awards. It is the joint individual efforts working together of Nina McGovern and Elliot Waters with their electronic whistle. And you know, long after somebody might decide that the traditional whistles are all right again because COVID is behind us, I'm actually sure that the electronic whistle has now found its market and will become a very, very common device across the modern railway. It's a lovely piece of operating initiative at a time when the traditional device was no longer appropriate, but in a way, I think, that takes us forward. We are going to award this year the Outstanding Operator Golden Whistle to Nina and Elliot for the electronic whistle. And many, many congratulations to you both. Well done indeed. Well, a great well done to all those award winners in the individual Outstanding Operator section. We now come to the teams section, the Outstanding Operating Teams. We've had some great nominations this year, and we've ended up with a great shortlist of 5 teams on our shortlist this year. And like the individual operators, I want to spend some time telling you all about each of these teams and what they have been nominated for this award. I'm going to start off with the driver management and operation standards teams at Avanti West Coast again. Faced with actually some concern in 2019-20, so the year before COVID, faced with some concern about safety incidents on West Coast, these teams set about trying to tackle the issues that are arising. In 2019-20, safety incidents like SPAD, signals passed at danger, TPWS, train warning system, train protection warning system activations, station overruns, and in some cases, missed stations, station stops missed. These actually are all incidents of concern. SPADs, we all know as professional operators, are very dangerous. TPWS was introduced to make our railways safer and to mitigate against the worst risk of SPADs. But actually, TPWS activations are in themselves a concern because they indicate a breach. And therefore, if these numbers of these incidents, FADs, TPWS, and indeed things like station overruns, if they increase, then we know we have something that we need to tackle. Well, the driver management and the operation standards teams on Avanti West Coast set about this. But then, of course, COVID came, and it's difficult because, there was limited cab access. That understandably, there had to be restrictions to create COVID-safe environments for employees. So I had to limit the amount of direct contact. And so if you're trying to tackle this kind of thing, the COVID environment actually makes it even more difficult. But these teams decided that it was worth working hard on this and working within the COVID guidelines, but nevertheless continuing to work hard on these issues to try to bring about as quickly as possible a reduction in these kind of safety incidents. And they were able to do so. And actually, okay, it's fair to say there's been less trains running, but nevertheless, they have been able to dramatically dramatically improve safety by dramatically reducing SPADs, TPWS activations, station overruns in the year 2021, which is the year which has just finished. Really good results. A really determined effort by these two teams to get those good results. And the creation, as I said, when we were talking about some of the individuals, and the creation of the environment in which those benefits will go on into the future as we get busier again on our main lines, and in this case, on our West Coast main line. So great credit to the Avanti West Coast driver management and operation standards teams. And that's our first shortlisted entry for the Teams Award. The next one is very different indeed. This is a shortlisted award for Heathrow Express Depot Decommissioning Team. Heathrow Express Depot Decommissioning Team at Old Oak Common. Now, I don't know how many of you have recently travelled out of Paddington on a train going westwards. All trains actually out of Paddington go westwards, but I don't know how many of you at the moment, anyway. I don't know how many of you have done that recently, but if you have, you will have seen changes taking place at Old Oak Common Depot just outside the Paddington Throat. And you're going to see even more in due course because you're going to see huge works there for HS2 construction. And this is why the Heathrow Express Depot had to be decommissioned at Old Oak Common. And it has had to go to make way for the HS2 construction works. Now, of course, there was a fleet of trains maintained at that depot, the Class 332 fleet, the original Heathrow Express fleet. Many of you will be very familiar with it. And it has been scrapped and had to be scrapped. It had served its life in Heathrow Express. Those of us who remember Heathrow Express opening only feel like it's a few minutes ago. But of course, it's a quarter of a century ago and more, over a quarter of a century ago. And therefore, that fleet had done its full service. But also the 360 fleet that had been working on Heathrow Connect services was to go as well, being replaced, of course, by the Crossrail trains, which are serving into Heathrow. So these fleets maintained that the Heathrow Express depot were moving on. The 360s have not been scrapped, they've been sold. I might mention a bit more about that in a second because that sale didn't go particularly smoothly. And the decommissioning team had to handle that in their process of their work as well. The trains have been replaced by the Great Western 387s on the Heathrow Express and, of course, the new Thameslink, the new Crossrail trains on the Heathrow Connect. The actual process, though, of decommissioning a depot and getting rid of the old trains, bringing new trains in, is a tricky one if you're still trying to keep the service going. And of course, I had to keep Heathrow Express going, and the 387s were awaited for quite some time. So the conversion of those services from 332s to 387s has taken time, and so you can't suddenly walk away from the depot and from the trains without doing this in a systematic and managed way. And that is what the Heathrow Express depot decommissioning team have done. And they've done it very, very skillfully and professionally. And they've been nominated for this award. I said I would mention something more about the sale of the 360s. The 360s were actually going to go to South Africa, but they've actually found a UK buyer now, and that was a little bit of a tricky process, and therefore, again, the depot decommissioning team, had to tailor the timing of their work. However, the good bit of news is that despite all these challenges along the way, they did manage to hand over the site to HS2 on schedule, and that's really important. We all know how important to this nation HS2 is, and the confirmation that HS2 would go ahead was great news for the railway industry. And you want it to go ahead with all the other things around to facilitate it going on schedule. Well, the Heathrow Express depot decommissioning team ensured that it could, as far as Old Oak Common was concerned. And so great credit to that team, and they have been nominated in the Outstanding Operating Team. So our third nomination, our third shortlisted nomination, I should say, is the Solent 7 team of Great Western Railway and Network Rail. So here's another team of joint cooperation and coordination of effort on the Great Western and Network Rail. The Solent 7 team. And for those of you who may not be familiar with the geography that team are working on, let me just tell you something about the services. The Portsmouth to Cardiff services are included, the Westbury to Swindon services, the Weymouth to Great Malvern services. So if you can picture the geography of that area, coming up from the south coast and going into South Wales and the Welsh borders and so on. So crucial services for Great Western Railway. Services that have been challenging in terms of keeping the performance going in many ways. Cross-cutting services, crossing other main lines and so on. And yet services that are very, very important to the communities that they serve. This team, the Solent 7 joint team of Great Western and Network Rail, decided that to collaborate together to solve performance issues, they needed to look at the root cause of delays. So often is the case in professional operating, you mustn't just think of the first reason and then solve that one, because actually all that might reveal is that there's another reason under that one. So you must look at the root causes, what's really causing delay. When they worked through this, they found all sorts of very interesting areas to look at. Timetable scheduling was one of the issues. Andrew mentioned that in his speech earlier on. Timetable scheduling can be a key issue, and just putting minutes in doesn't solve anything. It actually can cause more knock-on effects. You have to look at what is wrong with the path. Why doesn't this slot work? And that really is a way to get through into the root cause. Sometimes it's about platforming conflicts at major stations. So these services go through some major stations, and if the timetable, the platforming conflicts don't work there, the scheduling won't work, and you will get knock-on delays all the time. And actually, what they found was the scheduling of freight trains over the route. It's an important route for freight. There's some important freight over that route, and we want to protect the freight business. Again, can I draw upon Andrew's talk earlier on where he mentioned that actually freight has grown on many routes, even during COVID. So we must take into account freight train scheduling. And freight trains that have not got a good schedule can also have knock-on effects on the passenger service, as many of you will readily know. But the answer isn't just to say the freight shouldn't be there. Not at all. The freight is a core part of our railway business. So we need to look after it. We need to get the schedules right. This team worked really hard on all these issues, and they have brought about major improvements on PPM and on-time punctuality. I'm sure that many of the benefits they have found and the improvements that they've made will help as that route again gets busier in the post-COVID environment. And therefore, the judges felt well worthy of shortlisting for this year's team awards. I'm coming now to the fourth award in this category, which is the fourth shortlisting, I should say, which is to the train planning, resources and train crew diagramming team for Avanti West Coast. This gets to the core of railway train planning, doesn't it? Train planning, the schedule, the resources necessary, and the train crew diagrams necessary to make it happen. With the COVID-19 pandemic, there's been on many routes, and particularly on West Coast, many changes to the timetable as the timetable has been adjusted during the year to take into account particular situations. Avanti West Coast actually have had 7 timetable changes in 10 months. Now, that is not a practice we normally want. As Andrew mentioned, we've got to have to be more flexible in the future, and we hope to be able to do that. But 7 changes in 10 months is really just a reflection of the COVID environment. But it was necessary as the services have been decreased, then increased again, and so on. Now, if you think about that number of changes and just think about the process of going through, you do your plan, you do your diagrams, but then the diagrams, the roster follows from the diagram. And so you've got to agree the roster changes to the diagram changes and so on. This is really hard work. This is graft. This is relentless during the time when so many so many changes to the train plan have had to happen, but actually it's been added to by possessions. Kilsby Tunnel. Some really important works have been done there during the COVID year, but those, of course, have had implications that had to be reflected in the train plan and in the diagrams. Camden overhead line, important works there as well, but again had to be catered for in this period. And yet, despite all these works going on and these changes, over 10 periods in the year 2021, Avanti West Coast have brought about a 10% improvement in PPM. So really good work done by the train planning, resources and train crew diagramming team on Avanti West Coast. And that's why they are shortlisted again for this award. And the fifth and final shortlisted entry that I want to tell you about is from Thameslink and Great Northern operating teams, and they have a thing called their Take 5 for Safety campaign. What they did in July 2020 is they decided that they would start making safety videos. And at one period, they were making a safety video every day for different issues of safety. They were taking the opportunity during this COVID pandemic time to think about the incidents, the near misses, the sort of hints and tips for railway people that they could they could visualize for people in little videos. And I want to give you a few examples of these videos because I think they're great. I think they're great in the way that this group have been thinking on small issues and larger issues, and then visualizing it for people, for colleagues in a video. And that everything from wearing the appropriate footwear when you're out and about on the railway or when you're doing a certain job in a railway depot. There are environments in which the appropriate safety footwear is absolutely crucial. And so they made little videos about that, and getting just people to think, before they set off to work, make sure they've got with them, either on them or at work when they get there, the right footwear for the job that they're going to be doing. Here's a very different one. They've made videos about the personal well-being of colleagues during the COVID pandemic. We have had colleagues who've had family tragedies at home. They've lost loved ones to COVID. And if any of you listening today have had that, you know how that affects the whole family. You wouldn't have been able to have a normal funeral, and all the kind of things that go with the family support when a loved one is lost have been different this year. And it does affect the personal well-being and indeed the mental health of many colleagues. And anything that affects personal well-being and mental health of colleagues can affect railway safety. We know that. And these colleagues knew that when they were making their videos to try and encourage ways of helping such individuals at this time. I think that's a tremendous idea to think of doing that. And here's another very different one. There's so many of these that they have done. Incidents in depots during movements. Real safety critical issue can be very, very slow speed, walking speed movements in depots. But if they're not properly protected, if they're not done in accordance with the requirements, the safety provisions in that depot, they can lead to very, very serious safety issues, impacts, even worse. So video around thinking carefully, complying with depot movement requirements is another excellent area and very different to the other two examples that I've given you. So I'm sure you'll agree with me that, again, well worth shortlisting the safety initiatives, the videos, the thinking behind the Take 5 safety campaign from colleagues from Thameslink and Great Northern operating teams. Well, there are the 5 shortlisted team entries from the nominations that the judges were able to see. All highly valued, worthwhile shortlisted entries. Like the individual entries, I'm going to first of all tell you about the highly commended awards, then the silver whistle, and then the golden whistle. I've got 3 highly commended awards to tell you about. And first of all, it is the improvements on Avanti West Coast in driver management and ops standards. And I told you about that award in the shortlisting, and those colleagues, the driver management team and the ops standard team, worked really well together to tackle some of the safety issues that they were finding were arising. And credit to them, highly commended to the Avanti West Coast driver management and operations standards team. Our second highly commended award goes for the successful decommissioning of the Heathrow Express depot at Old Oak Common. And again, great credit to these colleagues who had to work away with all sorts of different things happening at the time, keeping the services going, whilst at the same time, slowly but surely, stepping back from the old fleet, bringing in the new fleet, and decommissioning the depot in order to let the other teams from HS2 get ready to come in with their major works on this site, which is a key part of facilitating the construction of the first sections of HS2. So highly commended again for outstanding work by the Heathrow Express depot decommissioning team. And the third highly commended award goes to the Thameslink and Great Northern Ops team for their Take 5 safety campaign. Well done, colleagues, for all the different ideas that you've had for videos that would help safety and help people to comply with safety requirements. Well worthy of a high commendation, Thameslink and Great Northern operations teams. So we come to the silver whistle. In this category, the silver whistle goes to the Great Western Railway and Network Rail joint teams from the Solent and Severn joint team for their outstanding work in improving performance of those services. I mentioned earlier that their work, I'm sure, will bear fruit for a long time as those services start to recover and performance continues at a high level and doesn't slip back to the difficulties those services have had over many years in the past. Great work, and the judges thought highly worthy of a silver whistle. Many congratulations to the Solent and Severn team. And the golden whistle. Well, again, if you've been following this through, you will have now realized that with their excellent work in the COVID year to deal with the challenges of all the changes on the West Coast, the golden whistle this year for the outstanding team goes to Avanti West Coast Train Planning, Resources and Train Crew Diagramming Team. This is a real team effort to bring forward and resolve many issues necessary during all the changes that have happened this year. And I'm sure when we get back to a more normal pattern of service changes, the Avanti West Coast Train Planning, Resources and Train Crewing Team will be ahead of the game for all the excellent work they have done. Great credit to them and a well-deserved golden whistle. Well done. Well, colleagues, that brings me now to just one special award, a judge's special award this year. And this one is very, very different. Each year, the judges look around for something that hasn't been nominated, maybe is relevant to its time, maybe it's just something different and special that wouldn't fit into any of the classic categories of the Golden Whistle Awards, but actually deserves some recognition and credit in our railway industry. And this award is going to be in the context of our wider railway industry. I don't know whether any of you listening to this today have had any involvement with the heritage railway sector. I have. Only in recent years, since I retired from full-time executive work, I did take on, for a period of 5 years, the role of a chairman of one of the heritage railways in this country. Now, I should say to you, it is not the heritage railway that is about to receive this award. So please don't feel there's some insider dealing going on here, because there definitely isn't. But I have had that involvement with the heritage railway sector in recent times. And I just want to tell you why I mention that. I mention it because I saw for myself the tremendous work that largely volunteer railway people do to bring about the sort of results, the quality of heritage railways, which so many people enjoy in this country. So many people enjoy them. And they're largely delivered by volunteer workforces. Many of those volunteers actually are professional railway people who work on, shall we call it, the mainline railways anyway, but also in their spare time volunteer on heritage railways. And some are not. Some are people who do very different jobs in their day jobs, but then in their spare time they volunteer on heritage railways. This particular railway was really flying just prior to COVID. There's a slight pun there because they had just had the visit of the Flying Scotsman tremendous locomotive, Flying Scotsman, an icon really for many people in terms of railway heritage in this country. They had a visit of the Flying Scotsman just prior to COVID, and then lockdown occurred, and they had to close. And those first months of lockdown were dark days for many people. They couldn't do, as the spring of 2020 was upon us, they couldn't do the sort of things that they wanted to do, whether it be from their volunteering or whether it be, from their enjoyment of just going out and about, as a tourist almost. They couldn't do that. Things improved a little bit in the summer, and so some of the heritage railways were able to reopen. But then this COVID tier system came in. We had to look at what tier you were in, and 1 minute you were open, next minute you were closed, and it became really difficult for people trying to organise those kind of things. Then things were seen to be opening up again for Christmas, and this heritage railway decided that those pretty dark days of last Christmas needed lightening up, literally. So they decided to do a steam illumination event. It went down really well. It was very, very popular indeed. And the judges felt that this was something really special. This is the Mid-Hants Railway, colleagues. Those of you who may have visited it before. And I'm going to show you a short clip of video, please, now, on the special steam illuminations on the Mid-Hants Railway. Let's just watch that little video for a few seconds. So there we are, colleagues. The Special Judges Award, the Judges Special Award this year goes to the Mid-Hants Railway. You saw the branding there, the Watercress Line. Some of you may know it as the Watercress Line. Great credit to them. Something different, but, the Heritage Railway are an important part of the railway sector of this country, and something many people get great pleasure from. Lovely to see the efforts they made, even in the dark days of the COVID year, to do something really special. Well, I'd like to now just take the opportunity to congratulate all the award winners today. You've heard some really splendid examples of professional, individual railway work and team railway work. And I feel very privileged to be able to share with you those awards and recognition that those people well deserve. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank again people who have really helped to make this event go well. So let's start off with Andrew Hames, Chief Executive of Network Rail. And thank you, Andrew, for that excellent speech at the outset and for setting the scene for the future as we move into it. I'd like to also congratulate the people who've done the numbers to work out a lot of the performance awards. We haven't gone through them today. You'll see them listed on your screens. You'll see them later. You'll see them in the July issue of Modern Railways. But the Network Rail Industry Performance Team and the Irish Rail team, because these are include Ireland as well, have done hard work to crunch those numbers to get those operating statistics out and to find out who the winners were in each category. I'd like to thank Glenn Merriman and Alex Hellier from the IRO Southeast Council, who formed the judging panel. And that's actually been the work of the panel that you've largely been hearing about this morning in all those individual and team awards that I have been making.
Visit www.keymodernrailways.com for more interesting and essential information about the British Railway Network.